Most people, when they hear the word storytelling, think make-believe. They think about the story. In the next few minutes, I invite you to focus instead on the relationship that forms between speaker and listener during the story. This is Storytelling 101 for Parents. My name is Joseph Saracey. I am a father, a teacher, and a storyteller. If you've ever thought about telling stories to your kids but didn't, this is for you. It's also for grandparents, teachers, and anyone interested in a lasting relationship with kids. There's a lot of excellent science on this subject today, and by the end of this recording, I will have shared quite a bit of it. I will also describe a key tool to help you begin telling stories with your children today, something I call the storytelling loop. Lastly, I will speak briefly about why storytelling is uniquely useful today in the modern world. Let me tell you a little bit more about me before we begin. I have written a number of articles for Fatherly, an online magazine helping dads connect with their kids. Earlier this year, I published a book called A Father's Life, a collection of stories about my time with kids. I've also written for the Cosmos Journal, and in 2018 I initiated a project called the Great Dad Campaign to highlight all kinds of different dads around the country. I do this because I believe the relationship between parent and child is critical to the success of our species, and that mothers mostly have this figured out. Dads need more help. More recently, I co-authored a book titled How to Tell Stories to Children, which has begun to gain the attention of some important public figures. Honestly, I hate saying all this. I'm really just a guy, a regular dude. But I am a regular dude that knows some stuff about storytelling. I tell stories every day, whether at home or at school, and I'm widely respected for this talent. But I'm not a professional storyteller. This is key, because my focus is on regular people like you and me sharing regular stories with regular children. This is not about writing or telling the next blockbuster. That's a distraction, and it's unnecessary. If you're like me and you begin to see that storytelling is about the relationship between speaker and listener, in this case, parent and child, then you realize that this is a tool for everyone, not experts. Let's dive into that. A number of psychologists, neuroscientists, and evolutionary theorists have begun to paint a very interesting picture for us of storytelling's place in human development. Put briefly, storytelling isn't just about make-believe. It is a cognitive tool that helps people share information, retain attention, and build trust. There are tons of studies today demonstrating how people remember information better when it is told in a story. The numbers vary, but a modest figure is 600%. That's worth paying attention to. But here's what's more interesting. Placing storytelling within the evolutionary framework of human development helps us see that storytelling is a social tool. Yes, it helps us remember information, but more importantly, it helps us attract attention and build trust. These are critical skills for social creatures like you and me. Because of our tendency to form national and international social structures, we're sometimes even labeled super social. So, if we're super social, what are the tools we use to create that social structure? Storytelling turns out to be one of the most important, and you see it everywhere, in religion, nationalism, and just the stories of your neighborhood, the music scene, at school, or in the family. In his book, The Storytelling Animal, Jonathan Gottschall writes that fiction will make you more empathic and better able to navigate life's dilemmas. Stories, he says, are like dress rehearsals for real life. He quotes Marco Iacoboni, a pioneering neuroscientist at UCLA who studies mirror neurons. We have empathy for fictional characters, he says, because we literally experience the same feelings ourselves. Storytelling is not an evolutionary glitch, Gottschall concludes. Fiction is good for us. So let me put it another way. Storytelling is a human trait. It's like walking. Not using storytelling is like choosing not to walk on 2 feet. It's something you were designed to do. In the modern world, we give our children more and more stories through books, movies, and video games. And that's fine. This is not a commentary on screen time. But the result is that those stories aren't building the social connection that storytelling was designed to do. Or at the very least, we're not positioning it where it properly belongs between parent and child. So now you might be beginning to see why I said earlier that storytelling isn't about telling the next blockbuster. That's a distraction. Storytelling belongs to everyone, particularly to you and your child. Best of all, it's free, and it comes hardwired with the package at birth. Still, even if we believe in the value of storytelling, and most of us do, many parents are nervous when it comes to telling stories. Me too. I'm nervous right now. That's why I want to describe a method that helps. I call it the storytelling loop. I use it every time I tell a story, which is pretty much every day. And as you'll see, it leads to all sorts of benefits. It starts by identifying 1 or 2 real and concrete things in your child's environment. This could be a toy, a snack, a game, even an event. It can be a dryer sheet or a hole in the wall, anything, so long as your child will recognize it. Then you take this thing, this very real and recognizable thing, and tell a story about it. 2 minutes is enough. When the story ends, your child will have a new perspective on this thing. In many cases, she will pick up the story for herself and find new expressions for play and creativity through that very real thing. This is the storytelling loop. You can think of it as a stitch between reality and imagination. A practiced storyteller has made many such stitches, weaving a dense fabric of reality and imagination, and helping to fill her child's world with all sorts of outlets for play and creative exploration on both sides, reality and imagination. I use it for teaching too, and it's a very effective tool for soothing upset children, resolving conflict, or deriving meaning from difficult life events. Let's give an example. A mother and her son are eating macaroni and cheese. At some point during the meal, the mother tells the boy that when she was a girl, she accidentally spilled a box of macaroni all over the floor. She tried to clean it up, but it was late and she didn't do it so well. The next morning when she woke up, a friendly spider told her about how he went sliding down the macaroni tubes all night, jumping from one to the next, and had so much fun. "Uh-oh," she said, "I have to clean up the macaroni or my mom will be upset." But she gave the spider one of the tubes to keep. He dragged it to the bathtub where he went sailing, then turned it into a submarine. It was a great adventure. I guarantee you that after this story, both mother and son will have a new relationship to the noodles. This is the storytelling loop. We have a reality, a concrete something. Then we tell a story about it. Afterward, we have a new relationship to that very real thing. This is pretty cool in and of itself, but what's even more interesting is the intimacy and trust that grows between parent and child through the shared experience of storytelling. This example is whimsical, which is where most parents will start. It's just fun. But in time, you can use this storytelling relationship to help make meaning of all sorts of experiences in life. Let me share 2 moments from just this past week. In one story, which was about vowels, one little girl was crying at the end of the story. Her classmates ogled her curiously, and one little boy finally said out loud, "Why are you crying? It wasn't that scary." Admittedly, there had been a dragon in the story, and one of the characters had been burned. When he healed, he sang a song in gratitude to his friend who had saved him. "I'm not crying because I'm scared," said the little girl. I'm crying because it was so sweet. My heart just burst open when she said that. That's the power of storytelling, and every one of us felt it in the room. Honestly, the story wasn't even all that good, but when you have the trust and intimacy we've created, I've known most of these kids for 3 years or more, then you can draw upon even simple events to create moments that no one will ever forget. Here's another. The very next day we were outside. Now, I live in New Mexico, and it's very wild and beautiful here. We were in a little canyon under a large juniper tree, and we had just finished lunch. This is normal for us, so the kids were bedding down in preparation for story time like we always do. Honestly, much of the time my stories are pretty wimpy. They're duds, but it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to tell super hits. I'm just trying to pay attention to the relationship. This story happened to grab the moment perfectly. A flock of scrub jays had flown over us during lunch, which was loud and noticeable. I used that as the bridge into my story, which ended up being about 2 scrub jays falling in love, building a nest, and the bobcat that roamed nearby looking for an easy meal. I tied in a craft spider one of the kids had made earlier out of sticks and yarn, telling how another kid at another time had made some such thing and left it behind. The scrub jays found it and built it into their nest. The story ends with the bobcat peering dangerously over the unprotected nestlings, while mom and dad are out looking for food, when the spider, silent all this time, suddenly shouts, "Boo!" The kids laughed their faces off, watching that bobcat turn tail and run in their minds. Once again, the story was just fine, but it just happened to catch that moment, weaving together reality with imagination. I want you to have that experience with your own kids. Okay, so we've tackled some of the science, and I hope I've given you some insight into using the storytelling loop. Now I'd like to share why storytelling is uniquely useful in our modern lives. Okay, check this out. Earlier this year, at the same World Economic Forum in Switzerland, where Greta Thunberg ignited a powerful social movement, Dr. Jane Goodall made an important speech. When asked how to speak effectively on the subject of climate change with political and business leaders, she said, "What you have to do is get into the heart." And how do you get into the heart? With stories. Isn't that great? I'm not trying to steer this into a conversation around climate change. I'm just pointing out how Goodall's statement reveals something of crucial importance about the role of storytelling in our lives. Stories attract us. They warm us up so that we're more likely to listen. This turns out to have major consequences, both at home and on the global stage. Storytelling and the relationship it builds is useful to people of every creed, color, or politic. It helps build empathy, mutual understanding, and it can be shaped to express any values you want to pass on. Stories are a principal part of every world religion and nationality. It's behind every major holiday and social institution we have. Why? Because it's about forming relationships. And what's the foundation of all relationships? Parent and child. Every parent, conservative, liberal, rich, poor, black, white, every parent can use this tool to create healthy attachment at an early age. Let's go back to Jane Goodall. So often, she said, I see activists, and they come face to face with a CEO, and they immediately become very aggressive. So the person that they're attacking is immediately defensive. It's no good when you meet somebody like that. What you have to do is get into the heart. And how do you get into the heart? With stories. I want to live in a world where activists and CEOs and everyone has this skill. No matter where we stand on the issue of climate change or anything else, it's clear to many of us that our children are going to face critical challenges of some sort in the future. I believe our children will do that best if they are able to face those challenges and each other with empathy. Storytelling builds empathy, is an efficient tool for sharing information, and invites the listener into the intimacy of the storytelling relationship. In other words, it unites. So, now we've tackled our three main objectives. 1, a little bit on the science of storytelling. 2, a simple method to help you begin telling stories with your own children, which we call the storytelling loop. And 3, why storytelling is relevant on the global stage. I'd like to leave you with one last example, a very simple one, that gives a little insight into all three of these goals. It's about a little boy. This little boy frequently leaves his jacket behind, whether at school, in the park, at a friend's house, etc. It's easy to get frustrated with him, and his mother does her best, but she can't help but nag him sometimes. He sheepishly promises to do better, but he never does, and it begins to be a sore point between child and parent. One day, Mom drops the fight and tells a story. It's about a bear who went swimming and unzipped his fur coat. He left it on the shore, then forgot and was embarrassed when he got home all naked. Winter came and he had to go on a great search, only to find that a few squirrels and a rabbit had made a tent out of it. The boy laughed with his mother as they imagined the characters in the story. As they listened, the story gently but effectively sent home the message without singling the child out for criticism and putting him on the defensive. The jacket still got left behind, but now Mom had a literary device that diffused the tension. "Hey, don't be a naked bear," became a funny, kind way to remind the boy to get his jacket. Stories like this bring parent and child together, rather than dividing them into problem and criticizer. This is how storytelling can be harnessed to bring people together. That's its ultimate function, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you valued this presentation, you can find all sorts of research and tips in our book, How to Tell Stories to Children, by Joseph Saracey and Silke Rose West. You can also help us promote storytelling and the bond between parent and child by liking our Facebook page or visiting our website at howtotellstories-to-children.com. Leave a comment. We'll write back. We'd love it, of course, if you bought the book and shared it with a friend, but I'm going to be honest and tell you that you will gain more from telling 3 to 4 stories on your own, including all the mistakes, than you will from me or anyone else. This is a skill that lies deep inside you. Your ancestors worked this out over tens of thousands of years. Just try it. Create a regular practice if you can. That said, we'd love your support so that we can continue to promote storytelling. Check out the book, then pass it along. And good luck. I hope you and your children create something uniquely your own.